Well, every February for the last few years, I've held a meeting with student athletes and their parents where we kind of pitch them this idea of going to Guatemala for a week in the summer. It's this really cool thing that we get to do. We bring them in, we say, hey, look, hey, we're going to take your kids to Guatemala. And inevitably, some parent raises their hand and they say, isn't that dangerous? And I say, yes, that's why we're going. And they don't like that answer very much usually. It's this really cool thing we get to do. We take this group of student athlete leaders down to Guatemala. This is an entirely church trip. So if you're part of Church on the Drive, and I love that you are part of making this happen. You are part of this whole deal. We say to the athletic department at Edgewater High School, when we send notes to the coaches and say, hey, listen, we would love to help you develop your leaders on your team. I know you've got some, and you've got some people that you're looking at that they're going to be the leaders. So in order to help you be able to create better leaders, stronger leaders, more effective leaders, send them with us to Guatemala on this mission trip because we believe that the greatest leader who ever lived was this guy named Jesus. He showed us what real leadership was. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. No matter what you think about Jesus, you got to say his results are pretty good as a leader, right? Going from no people to 12 to hundreds to billions. Show me somebody else who's done that. So we go down to Guatemala with these people. Some of the coaches will go with us too because they want to see what it's all about. Sometimes a parent or two will go with us. And we go and we do things like take food to people. We walk into houses of women and children who don't have any food coming in. Dad is off somewhere else working as much as they can, if dad's in the picture at all. And they have no food. They don't know how they're going to eat that week. And suddenly we walk in with food that this church has paid for to be provided. And we say, here's some food. And their faces, you can just see the tension roll off. Suddenly they're amazed at what God has done in their life. And they're ecstatic. And sometimes there's tears flowing down. And they're so happy. And so we get around with these teenagers. And next thing I know, teenagers are hugging people they don't know who don't speak the same language. And they're praying for them out loud. Some of these teenagers have never done this in their life, and they're praying out loud for these people. They never prayed a prayer before ever. It's this really cool moment. And then we'll build houses for people who would otherwise not have a house. I've gone in, and if you've been to Guatemala with me, you've seen these houses too. They're made entirely out of tin. Like you need a tetanus shot just to look at this thing, that sort of deal. And these students will take big cinder blocks like this, ones you've seen before, and they haul them up the side of a mountain by hand. Just walking with, as you know, the guys get in there and they're like, I'm going to take 10 at a time. I'm going to prove to everybody, right? But they walk up the side of a mountain or down these little ravines with them, and they build houses, these concrete houses. And now a lot of these houses, they wouldn't even put their lawnmowers in here in the States, but these are solid brick houses with nice roofs over them and windows and doors put in, things that a lot of these people have never had in their entire life. We go and we put on sports camps for kids, and really what that devolves into is that the kids just are playing around, and next thing I know, they're painting the fingernails of some of the girls, and then they make one of the big football guys come and do it too, and they're loving that, you know, and there's inevitably just a horse wandering around on this soccer field where 100 people are playing soccer. It's an amazing event. It's an amazing thing. And so as I was thinking ahead to Guatemala and all the dates that I have to get ready for as we approach that trip, we have our annual February meeting with the student athletes and their parents next week. And I started thinking about how we got here. Because it's not a normal thing. I don't know if you know this. It's not a normal thing for us to have the type of relationship we do with the athletic department. It's not a normal thing for churches to really even be involved at a school at all, let alone all of them around us. It's not a normal thing for a church to take a mission trip with a bunch of student athletes from their local high school. So how did we get there? And I got to tell you, it's all God working behind the scenes because I can't envision a lot of these stuff. I'm not that strategic. It all started with a very awkward conversation. We used to, when I first moved here in 2015, we wanted to reach our community. We wanted to figure things out, but we didn't exactly know how. We kept seeing that we weren't being as effective as we wanted to be in our community and as effective as our church had historically been. in our community. We've been here for going on 97 years. It's been tough. We wanted to continue doing this work, but we couldn't figure it out. Around that time, this girl named Brooke Thomas showed up at our church and said, hey, listen, I'm doing this Camp Gladiator thing in the park. Anybody ever heard of Camp Gladiator? If you haven't, let me explain it to you. It's basically CrossFit in the park without weights, but you're still going to throw up everywhere. It's like that. And she's this incredible athlete that played at Edgewater and then on at Wake Forest, played basketball, and so it never bothered her. But she said to us, hey, I'm doing Camp Gladiator, but I need an indoor location. Would you mind if I use your gym in case it rained? Could I use your gym whenever it rains? Absolutely, you can. So I got to know her, 3 or 4 conversations over that next 8 months or so. And at the end of that 8 months, she tells us, hey, I'm not doing Camp Gladiator anymore. I am, she said, going to be the FCA director for this area, so including Edgewater High School. I'm going to lead FCA, and I was like, that's really cool. I just happened to see her after she got announced as the FCA director at this coffee shop, and I said, hey, Brooke, congratulations on everything. Hey, listen, if you ever need somebody who can be a chaplain for the football team or something, I'd love to do that. I played football. I really believe it's an important part of sport and all that, and she looked at me, and she goes, oh, I already have 2 guys, sorry. And I guess I made some kind of face, and she felt bad for me. So she's like, but you can come too, I guess, if you want to. And I was like, okay. Yeah. She goes, we're going to meet the coach. And to make a long story short, that season was not great. It was not fun. By the end of the season, we had gone 0-10. We had about 30 kids on the entire football team at all. I mean, freshman through senior. It was crazy. I'd never seen anything like it. Students were coming out of the stands and on the side, almost on the sideline, and they were like making fun of the players while they were playing because we played so bad. I'd never seen anything like it. But every week we came and we showed up and we did Bible study with them. We had our FCA moment with them, and we'd have 6 or 7 kids. And primarily what we were doing was just reminding them that it wasn't the end of the world, and that they were still loved by God, and here's why. That's primarily what we did. And the next year we got a new coach. And this new coach named Cam Duke and I talked, and he said, listen, I want you involved. I want you to be a part of this whole thing, and I want us to grow the kingdom together. And I said, okay, if you want to, absolutely. Next thing I know, we're going on mission trips, and we're having meetings in February about future mission trips. All because of an awkward conversation. All because it just showed up. See, so often we think that there's this great big strategy behind all of this, that like there's some genius out there who's plotted out a course for everybody, that you go to this person, you talk to that person, you do this thing, and then you do that thing, and then this will happen. I get some people ask me in ministry circles, well, how did you finagle that? How did you make these things happen? I could never do that. And I said, dude, I don't know. I just showed up. That's what I've always done. And that's what I want to invite you to do today. You've got to show up. It's the best advice I can give to anybody. If you want to bring people into the kingdom of God, you got to just show up. If you want to serve in your community, you've got to show up. I remember wanting to reach our community and not knowing how to do it. So the only thing I knew to do was to show up. I just started going up to the high school and being there all the time. Where could you go? What could you do? How might you show up? So many of us, we see a nation being torn apart. We look around. I mean, my social media feed is going nuts right now. And it's from both sides of the aisle. These people are evil. No, these people are evil. This person is dumb. No, this person is dumb. And it's back and forth constantly. And sometimes we wonder, how can we fix this? How can we be a solution? How can we be a light here? Show up. You've got to show up somehow. There's no plan. There's nobody coming to give you a plan. The last I heard, God doesn't normally just come out of the clouds and give you a golden plan. Unless your name's Joseph Smith. I don't know. That's a Mormon joke. I don't know if you got it. Okay. Oh, man, you've got to Show up. So many of us, we look at lives that are being torn apart too. We see people whose lives aren't as good as they could be. And we also know that so much of the problems and so many of the things that we see going on, so many of the dirty stuff in life that we come up against in our own lives and in other people's lives, that the solution is Jesus. We know this. We know that if people would put their hope and their trust in Jesus, if we would always put our hope and trust in Jesus, then things would get better. Things wouldn't feel so insurmountable. But how do we tell them? How do we earn the right to tell them? Well, the answer is the same. Just show up. You know a place you don't show up unannounced? A wedding. I don't know if you've ever tried it. They made a whole movie about it. You're not supposed to do it. You're not supposed to crash these weddings. Lucky for us, Jesus and his disciples and his mother, Mary, were invited to a wedding. They were invited to a wedding in a place called Cana. Now, Cana, depending on which location is the most accurate, is somewhere between 3 and 8 miles away from their hometown of Nazareth. And so they go to this wedding. That tells you that there's some kind of relationship there, that there's some kind of closeness between whoever's getting married and this Jesus party. Well, they show up to this wedding. Now, the thing about these weddings is they're supposed to last a long time. This is a huge festivity going on. Often these weddings last for a week. Me, I'm tired after about an hour at a wedding. But these things go on for a week. So many things. And you're supposed to, as a guest, bring presents with you and to help ease the burden. But the families of the bride and the groom are supposed to provide enough food and wine and everything else for the entire week, just in case it went for a full week or longer. And if you didn't, it was a great shame and it was a great embarrassment. And that bride and that groom were going to be kind of the butt of the village joke forever from that point on. Now remember, ancient Israelite culture in this Greco-Roman period was a shame and honor culture. Here in 21st century America, we've kind of thrown that sort of thing by the wayside. We tell people all the time, don't judge me. Don't judge me. Only God can judge me. Some of y'all got it tattooed on your bodies and we laugh at you for it, right? Only God can judge me. But in that world, everybody judged you. And your place in the social hierarchy, your ability to move forward in life at all, your ability to have friends was based largely around whether there was more shame or more honor attached to your family. So if you didn't do your part, even in a wedding feast, you were shamed and it was held against your family for a while. That's why when we find Jesus at this wedding in Cana, it shouldn't come to as any surprise to us that Jesus does this phenomenal thing. Here's where we pick up in the wedding in Cana. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, they have no more wine. Now, the women usually sat closer to where the food and wine was, and the men sat further off a little. It was kind of segregated in that way. So she would have found this out sooner. So she walks up to Jesus and goes, they have no more wine. I don't know if you've ever had a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or uncle politely walk over and say something to you in this way, but what she's doing is she's implying politely he needs to do something about it. He's a guest at this wedding. He needs to do something about it. They have no more wine. So Jesus' response is akin to what I would have said. Woman, why do you involve me? Why are you talking? That doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm here, Jesus, my hour has not yet come. Why are you involving me? That's nothing to do with me. But this part, my hour has not yet come, that's the important piece there. See, when you look at the Gospel of John, this biography that John has written about Jesus, what we find is that anytime we're talking about Jesus' hour, we're talking about his death on the cross. What Jesus is essentially saying is, the second I start doing miracles is the second I start on the road to the cross. So as I start walking that way, you need to understand what's going on. So why are you involving me in this? And again, some of us might ask, like if we had Jesus in front of us, we might ask, why would we try to get Jesus involved in something so small? Have you ever heard a child pray for their doggie that's sick? Oh, my dog has a hurt paw. And I, maybe like you, have been tempted before to go, well, who cares? It's going to be fine. Why are you involving Jesus in that? But even in bigger stuff where somebody's praying, hey, I really want this job. I've heard my non-believing friends say before, why would God care about your job or that Paul or his love life or her love life? Why would God care about that when there's all these things going on in the world? Why would Jesus have to stop and do anything with that? And why do you think Jesus would even care about that? Well, it's because of things like here at the wedding at Cana. Jesus doesn't have to care about this. In fact, he asks, why am I being involved in this? My hour to start doing these things hasn't come yet. Well, Mary's response is much like my mother and my grandmother would respond. His mother said to the servants, do whatever he tells you. She basically ignores him. She says, yeah, okay, whatever. Do whatever. Yeah. My grandmother's like this, man. You go to her house, she'll start in with you. Hey, you want something to eat? No. You want something to eat? No, I'm not hungry. 2 minutes later, do you want something to eat? No. After about the 5th time, she stops asking and just starts making stuff. It was already like prepped and ready to go, but now she's just warming it up and she's handing it to me, and you have to eat it. That's basically what's going on here. Do whatever he tells you. She already knows that he can address this. Now, I don't know if she thought he's going to perform a miracle, because at this point, he's not performed a miracle in his ministry career. She knows he's special. She knows what God has already informed her about him. But maybe she thinks he's going to arrange for some wine to be brought in, that he's such a good boy, he's going to do whatever he can to help because he's a guest at this wedding anyways. Who knows? But Jesus, sensing that he has lost this bout, says, okay, well, servants, come over here. And the servants come over there, and he says, you see these 6 stone jars over here? They got about 20 or 30 gallons worth. You can get in there? And he goes, yeah. They say, yeah, we got it. And he goes, fill all of those with water. And so they go, okay. And they fill these things up to the brim, all the way up to the brim. And he goes, great. Now, could somebody get us a cup? They go, yeah, sure, here's a cup. They get a cup, and he says, okay, great. Take some out of that, take some water out of there, and then take it over to the head guy. Take it over to the guy. Now, in those days, they had this person who was wandering, basically a wedding coordinator or a wedding festivities coordinator, who was in charge of making sure everything ran smoothly. He says, take it over to that guy and hand it to him. Well, that guy would have known that the wine was out. He would have been the first one to know. So he grabs the water from the servant, takes a drink, and he goes, oh, I didn't know they had more wine. And he walks over to the groom, and he says, hey, I thought you guys were out of wine. You guys are weird, man. You guys are strange. And the bridegroom's looking at him like, what are you talking about? Well, what he actually says to the groom is this: everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. Uh-oh, didn't know that was in the Bible, did you? Right? But you have saved the best till now. Obviously, Jesus turned this water into Welch's grape juice, right? That's the safe answer. He says, everybody brings out the good stuff first. And then they bring but you've given me better wine at the end. So not only has Jesus come along and handed them wine from water, which is incredible in itself, but he does it in a valuable way, in a very good way. He does this amazing thing. He blows their mind. See, wine wasn't the physical need here. Like it wasn't a physical need. Like they could have gotten by with less wine. They weren't starving. Nobody was dying of heat stroke out there and needing water. Nothing like that. But Jesus still meets a need. He saves his family from shame in a culture where shame and honor matter immensely. What ends up happening is Jesus shows up in his community. He shows up in a way that nobody else could have shown up. See, when we talk about showing up in our community, we can talk about it pretty easy. You show up and you use the means at your disposal, the means that you have in order to bring value to people's lives. When you show up in somebody's life, what you're doing is you're using the means that you have to bring value to their life. So Jesus' first miracle here with water into wine is a great example of this. As a church, as a body of believers, what we want to do is we want to show that we are for our community. We want to use whatever means we have to show that we are for our community. Listen, churches and are known for what we are against. People know. They know. They've heard it for a long time. They've heard the screaming. They've heard the yelling. They've seen the signs. They've seen the social media posts. They've heard the hellfire and brimstone sermons, all of that. They know what we're against. But what if they knew what we were for? And what if they knew we were for them? And so at Church on the Drive, a lot of times what you're going to see are examples like this. When you get on our social media, from time to time, you'll see that we have shared something from another page, like from Cups and Pups, this coffee shop down the street. We will have shared that and encourage people to go and to visit that place. Or we'll comment on College Park Cafe's dish of the day or something, and we're like, that looks delicious, you know. And you may wonder, why are they doing that? It's because we're trying to drive up traffic. We're using our means to bring value to what they're doing. You'll see things like that. You'll notice that we open our church for events that the city of Orlando may want to put on. Some of you vote here. You vote in our fellowship hall whenever it's time to vote. Why? Because we have a space that can be used for that, and we want to bring value. We just had 2 guitar concerts for Edgewater High School. They had them right here where you're sitting. This place was packed, man, to the rafters packed. Hundreds of kids up here playing the guitar in concerts 2 times last semester. Why? Because we can. We're using what we have to bring value to our community. That's how you show up. I wonder, what means do you have to show up in our community? What means do you have to show up in our community and bring value to their life? While you're thinking about that, I want you to guess what happens when Jesus shows up in his community and what can happen when you show up in your community. Here's what happened with Jesus. What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory. So the first miracle. And his disciples believed in him. They followed him. He said, come follow me. And they did. They took a chance. They took a risk. But it was here they started believing in him because he showed up in his community. I am of the belief, I am of the persuasion that when you and I show up in our community, more sons and daughters are brought into the kingdom of God. I'm of the belief that when we do things to lift Jesus up in our community, and when we do things that show the love of God in our community, that when we serve those around us, especially those on the margins of society, especially those who are more downtrodden or the ones that we would normally want to walk past and get away from, that when we serve like that and when we show up in our community in those ways, that Jesus is lifted high and more people can see him clearly and they suddenly want to start believing in him and following him. So my question to you is, again, what means do you have at your disposal to show up in your community? What is it that you might do? You know, so often we keep ourselves from showing up in our community out of fear. You've heard me say before, I think, that everything we do, I believe, boils down to one of 2 emotions, love or fear. And a lot of times we keep ourselves from showing up in our community because of fear. Things like we fear being told no. Hey, can I come be a chaplain with you? Nope. Nope. Can we take them on a mission trip? Nope. We fear being told no. We also fear the messiness. I mean, you get involved in people's lives, you start showing up in your community and doing stuff for people, especially those on the margins of society, it gets messy. It really does. It really does get messy sometimes. People don't always have great family situations. They haven't been raised in the same way you have, and so sometimes there's this disconnect about how we're supposed to act and not supposed to act. It can get really messy out of there. I can tell you, just with the Edgewater athletic department, when we've taken some of these trips, I'll get calls or we'll get emails. The school district will get emails too from this atheist foundation in Wisconsin. They don't want us doing this. Well, too bad. Because it's a church trip. We're not breaking any laws. We want to honor the law of the land. We believe in the separation of church and state, absolutely. But this is an entirely church trip, and we're honoring and being loving and kind about it. But it gets messy in that regard. Well, here's another one. We fear failing people. I fear I'm going to commit to doing something and then not do it, and I'm going to let them down. Or they're going to see me in my natural state, and I'm going to fail them, and thereby fail Jesus. If that's you, if you are not showing up in your community because of fear, you're not alone. Jesus saw this same fear in people when he talked to them about going out into all the world. He saw this same fear in their eyes when he said, I'm sending you out. And people aren't always going to like you. I'm sending you out as sheep among wolves. I'm sending you out to go do these things even without me. He saw the fear in their eyes. And this is his response to them. Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. He says the same thing to you and to me today, 2,000 years later. Don't be afraid. You don't have to be afraid. God is pleased to give you the kingdom. Not that you own it, but that you're a part of it. That you get to be a co-conspirator in this new thing, this new kingdom that God has brought to earth, that God is reshaping the earth with. Man, something that is loving and good. God is inviting you into that. Don't be afraid. God's with you. He's going to give you the words to say. He's going to give you favor where you need favor. Sometimes it's going to work out, and sometimes you'll have a whole strategy built up and why it's going to work, and it'll do that. But most of the time, your strategy, not going to work at all. Not going to happen. You know what works? You know the strategy that works? Just show up. And that's the bottom line of everything I want you to hear me to say today. When it comes to this showing up in your community, when it comes to figuring out how you can use your means for God's kingdom in our community, here's what it is. Walk through the doors God opens. Walk through the doors God opens. Sometimes you say, I don't know which one is which. You'll figure it out. That's where prayer comes in, and consistent prayer and being led by the Holy Spirit comes in. But even if you maybe try to walk through the wrong door, can I tell you this? God redeems our decisions. Even when we kind of mess up and start going down that wrong path, God can and will redeem our decisions. Don't be afraid. Walk through the doors God opens. That doesn't mean see a door and start trying to kick it down. God doesn't need your help. God can open that door. God can make it happen. Would you let me pray for you? God, I thank you for today. And I thank you that you have given us the privilege of reaching our community for you. I thank you that you've given us the privilege of serving people in our community and of showing them your love and doing our best to lavish it upon them the way you have lavished your love upon us. I pray for all those listening to the sound of my voice. Lord, give us ideas, but Lord, more than anything, give us a willingness and a courageousness to go and show up in our communities, to use the talents and the gifts and the resources that we have, to use all the means at our disposal that you have given us. Lord, I pray that you would help us to show up and make a difference for your kingdom. I ask it in the name of Jesus. Amen.